Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Whatnauts review show, our weekly book club style podcast here at the Whatnauts. We cover all sorts of different topics, different genres, different mediums. It might be a comic book, movie, TV show, all sorts of stuff. This week, we are going to be talking about a comic book called Irredeemable. This is one of our end of the month specials, so we will be covering this book to its completion at the end of every month. We do have one caveat about that that we will mention at the end of the show for next month. But yeah, we are here to talk about Irredeemable by Mark Waid and Peter Krause. My name is Kyle Springer, though, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you today?
My day has been pretty good. I finished up Deadwood Season 2.
Oh.
Yeah, I did the thing where I thought I was going to finish it last night, and I was like, okay, here we go, season finale. And I watched that one, and I'm just like, wait, there's 2 more episodes after this. This isn't even the penultimate one. So, I was like, I guess I will watch that tomorrow, which I did. So it's been a good lazy day.
Mm-hmm. Jeff also had a lazy day. Yesterday was my roommate's birthday, and I stayed up way too late.
Yes.
So I texted you at 10 p.m. saying, can we postpone recording tomorrow? I think I'm going to go with him to a strip club. And you said in all capital letters, yes, we can.
I was just like
great, cool.
Yes.
So I'm
yes,
aggressively chugging cold brew and doing my makeup at 10 p.m. thinking we're going to go out to this club. And I'm very wary about going out anywhere. But I'm like, well, it's my roommate's birthday. She wants to do this. I'm not going to say no to a strip club. I haven't been to one in 10 years. What are they like now? I need to see this.
How have they changed? What new technology do they have at the strip clubs?
Are there hologram
you never
strippers?
Know. Right?
In Blade Runner 2049. Are we there yet? But by the time everybody is ready and my roommate and her friend went out to a gas station to meet their friend, and then he wasn't there, and then they had to turn around and come back, so that took them an hour. After everything, we finally get to the strip club at midnight, and the other friend got there first in our 2 separate cars, and she's like, they're already closed.
Oh, no.
We all looked at the website. It all said, open till 6 a.m. And she's like, no, they ended up closing early.
It must be reduced hours because of the pandemic and stuff.
I guess, but every other company I've looked at has been listing their reduced hours on the website and the Google Maps. But
this man,
was
disappointing.
Open till 6 a.m. So we drove to Illinois for nothing, and then we're like, maybe we'll go to the casino. The casino's still open. It is, but there's no remotely affordable parking anywhere around it. It's we're not paying $40 to park to go to the casino. So we gave up and we just came back to the apartment and ordered pizza. And I stayed up until 2 a.m, just eating pizza and showing them
to
weird
my world.
YouTube videos. Yeah. Well, we couldn't go to the club, but let's just look up burlesque acts on YouTube.
There you go. That
Pretend. Works. Yeah, so
man,
it was fun. Kind of a wash, but we'll try again.
Looking forward to hearing the story on the captain's log. Melissa goes to a strip club.
I don't know. Well, it's my birthday in a couple weeks, so maybe then.
Who knows? Yeah,
we'll see the state of the world. Yeah.
Good stuff. Let's see here. I got with me. I have the physical copy of Volume 1. I own Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Irredeemable. I bought them a while back on Free Comic Book Day because my comic shop was having a big old sale, and I just picked these up because I had heard good things, and I think I didn't read them right away. I had them for a couple months just sitting there on my shelves, and eventually I read these first 2 volumes. And I immediately just had to finish the story. I was like, this is good. I really like this.
Yeah.
So I continued it. I think I shotgunned like the whole thing in like a weekend.
Oof.
Just like started on Saturday, finished it Sunday night, and I was just like, this is amazing. And I still haven't bought the rest of the story yet, but yeah, that one day I will have to go do this. But I'm really excited to talk about this book, especially in like 3 months from now when we've finished the whole story, because that'll be in it's one that we wouldn't have been able to do in our regular weekly show.
Yeah.
I've kind of mentioned this to you in pitching it, that one of the things that makes this book special, at least in my mind, is the ending of the book. And so you can't really cover this book without talking about the ending, which we will get to down the road. So I'm excited to get there and excited to talk about this book. Melissa, you hadn't heard of this book, am I correct?
Not at all.
Gotcha. So not having heard anything, what were you expecting when I had pitched this book? Because when I had mentioned this to you, I was like, I know I want to do a comic. Here's one of them that I want to do. Let me know what you think. And you were like, yeah, I'll check out a couple pages. And then you got back to me.
You had originally pitched the book as there's this Superman archetype superhero who's always been the golden boy, has pulled off some amazing rescues, both in terms of like magnitude and in constancy. Like he's always on the job, always helping people. Everybody loves this guy. And then he turns and he starts destroying things, and he hits the point where he may be irredeemable for all of the good that he has done before. I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting. And I was picturing something more of like a build up to that we were going to start with the golden boy, seeing him cracking, seeing whatever this irredeemable thing was, and seeing like the public image fallout from that.
Sure.
You know, like how is the news coverage about him changing? You know, is there a fan still wearing his t-shirt and then some other person on the street accosts them like, oh, you're still a fan of the Plutonian? Why? I was expecting something kind of like that, and instead the book starts with one of his other superhero cohorts like running into his house in the middle of the night saying, Donna, get the kids. No, don't get clothes, don't get cash, nothing. Like, we have to get in the car and we have to go. He's on his way. He's coming. And then here flies down Plutonian, lasers everybody, and like says to the like one remaining child, like, you know who I am? I'm a superhero. And like that's the cold open for this story. And you find out most of this has already happened. Like you start in media res, and it's mostly about the rest of his Justice League type of team trying to figure out, how do we stop him? Nobody has ever prepared any backup plan for what if the Plutonian goes bad. Like it's about the entire world running scared, and that's
like,
so exciting to me.
What do we do?
Yeah. It's less of like it is a character study, but it's a disaster story too. Like cities are in shambles. There's like soup lines because like he lasered all these fields full of like food that people can eat. Like the infrastructure of the world is gone. It's that bad now.
Yeah, because you were like, yeah, I'm just gonna check out the first couple pages and get back to you. You came back that next week and was like, I've read the first 80 pages and didn't realize it. So yes, we are reading this book.
It's a very strong start to this series.
Indeed, yeah. But yeah, then I think it was a week or two ago you had kind of checked back in and you had confirmed, like, yeah, I think I've read volumes 1 and 2, and there's no way it would have been worth it to cover on our weekly show.
Yeah.
You don't know anything really.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think we should back up a bit and do
Yeah.
a little bit more of a synopsis. You kind of covered it, biggest, best superhero named the Plutonian. They call him Tony for short. He is, this like Superman archetype, and something goes wrong. Something happens and he snaps and he goes bad. And he starts destroying things. I think there's one city in particular where it all starts. I think it was Sky City is what they
that sounds
named
right.
it.
Yeah.
And it is the rest of the heroes trying to be like to figure out what happened, like what made him do this and how to stop him. They are trying to dig into his past, but he's like, so I say he's a Superman archetype, but he's also not at the same time. Like he is what people who've never really read Superman think Superman is. Like, oh, he's this like overpowered guy. He has no weaknesses whatsoever, and like that's who this character is. Like he has no weaknesses. He's super strong. He's super fast. He can see everything. He can hear everything, right? And there is no kryptonite, at least that they know of, right? And they also don't know like where he grew up. Really, they don't know if he's from Earth or if he's from another planet. I guess they might know if they call him the Plutonian. That might allude to something, but still, it's just they only know him as the Plutonian.
Yeah,
they don't know him as Tony because they don't know if that's actually his real name. They just call him that because
it's his
Tony
work
is
nickname.
The Plutonian, right?
Yeah.
And so they're just like, fuck, we know nothing about this guy. How do we stop him? So it's a fascinating story.
Yeah, I loved that angle on this original premise that you told me about.
Yeah. It's also like seeing a person go bad over time, but you don't really get to watch the whole thing. You just get to hear stories like second hand because they do a lot of flashbacks, or they meet certain characters who will then tell you a story about, oh, well, this one time he was here and he did this thing, and I don't know, he just had this look, right? And it's just like, okay, maybe he had something kind of boiling underneath the surface that we didn't know. And so it's this neat investigation into who this character is and what happened. So do you have anything else you want to add to that in terms of a synopsis?
I think that's pretty good. Yeah, it's this guy has snapped. When the story starts, he's already snapped. He's destroyed a city. He's still out there just randomly destroying things. They can't track him, and it's just his old team.
Pisses him off. He's just like, you're gone.
Yeah, and it's just his old team trying to figure out how do we stop him. What the hell happened?
Yeah. So I think that's a good synopsis to get people started. We are going to do some housekeeping, and then we will get into spoilers and start talking about the first 4 volumes of this book. We will be covering the subsequent volumes in the coming months, so be on the lookout for those too. But housekeeping for now. If you did not know, we have multiple podcasts here at The Whatnauts. If you guys want more information, you can find them at our website, thewhatnauts.com. As well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. Just type in The Whatnauts and all of our shows will pop up right there. And if you like what we do, patreon.com/thewhatnauts is where you can support us for as little as $1 a month. I know we just filmed our Jackbox Party Pack community game night let's play type of thing. So that should be up on our website very, very soon. Once I get that in the works here. But yeah, that should be on the website soon. If you are a Patreon member, you can get that and a lot more exclusive content at our $3 tier. And a big shout out to our Patreon supporters at the $5 tier. So thank you, Sam, for helping us out, for supporting us, and for supporting us for so long, too.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you indeed. But with that, I say we go ahead and dive into spoilers. There we go. Okay. I'll have to go back and double check and make sure that spoiler thing got recorded on our my new setup. I'm experimenting with some things here, so I'll have to go back and see. Melissa. Since you are new to this book, and I have read the entirety of this book, where do you want to start?
I want to talk about how this whole book feels like such a nightmare. And the situation is, you could very easily call it that, yes.
Sure.
But it's not just a nightmare in that it is a very bad situation. It's got this dreamlike kind of quality to it where it starts right in the middle of things that are happening. It jumps around a lot. It moves around in time. Everybody's just sort of this basic archetype, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's got this kind of dreamy flowiness to it. Like, there's not really any structure. You've got a very loose handle on time and space and, like, okay, where are we? How long have we been doing this?
Yeah, like they reference a number of things that has happened in their past that we don't really get to find out about, but just it seems like generic superhero stuff with generic off-brand versions of superheroes or amalgamations of them. Like one of the main characters, his name is Cubit, I believe is how you pronounce it, and he's the genius of the team.
Yes.
He's the super smart guy. He's kind of like the Mr. Fantastic, the Reed Richards, but he's more of a technopath than like I can stretch or I'm a rich billionaire playboy thing. He's super smart, and that's his thing, and he can control technology and stuff like that. But then you have, I mean, you do have some that are a little bit more unique. I don't remember her name off the top of my head.
Kaiden.
Yes, her. That's exactly who I was thinking of, and she has these like Japanese or some kind of Asian culture folklore, and when she tells those stories, all of the spirits that she's telling these stories of manifest themselves and fight for her. So there is stuff like that, but then they do have a Thor / Hercules style character with with Gilgamesh or whoever his name
Gilgamos.
is. Close. But yeah, so like they have their just generic team, and that is why I think if we had only read those first 2 volumes, you wouldn't really get much out of this thing.
Yeah, and I dig the generic team. I think that works really well for what this book wants to do. And another superhero pastiche kind of stories we've covered, like Black Hammer, which we talked about earlier this year. It has a lot of characters that are based on pre-existing characters we have. Like that's the Martian Manhunter, obviously. You know, that's the Shazam character, but they're all a twist on it. Like Golden Gale, their Shazam type character is a middle-aged woman who gets the power to turn into like a preteen superhero. And so she's forever young in her superhero form. These characters, like, there's not really a twist. They are very basic, like dollar store, an unnamed Thor type man. There's no twist on that. They're super generic, but that works because this story, I think that initial concept of the world's greatest superhero has gone bad and nobody knows how to stop him is such a potent concept. And the way the story uses its pacing, this untangling of who is the Plutonian, who was he, where did he come from, and that atmosphere, just that worldwide panic and despair, really, because panic indicates that there's someplace you're trying to get to. Everybody feels lost. They're like, there is no safe place on Earth. This isn't like trying to get away from a hurricane or a Godzilla even.
Right,
there is nowhere we could get to where he could not get to us. And it's the atmosphere of all, like, it's got a lot of very powerful things it's dealing with. And that's something that can support just bland characters. I say bland on purpose. Like they're just meant to be these names, these figures, just something to fill out the superhero team archetype that we all know, which I think is something that also contributes to it being kind of dreamlike. Like, when you're talking to somebody in your dream, and in your dream, it's that person, even though you wake up and you're like, no, that didn't look anything like them. You just called a vague amalgamation of a bunch of faces that guy, and Dream Me believed it.
Yeah. It does have this nightmarish quality to it that you just like. I recognize this stuff, but there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Which I guess is also the feeling that you get from the Plutonian too, and especially as we start to dig into his past and stuff, and it's just like, there is something wrong here, and it's crazy to see all of that stuff. Did you? Now, so you mentioned this nightmarish quality. Did you have a certain scene or a certain event that you felt like was the most nightmarish to you?
Oh, this doesn't come in until like the second volume, I think. Okay. And like the nightmare quality was something I'd already established as like my frame of mind when thinking about this book. But when they talk about that past case that they had as a team where there was the plague of skeletons.
Mm-hmm.
So like a couple years ago, there was this little town in Mississippi or Alabama or somewhere where out of nowhere, kids just started becoming skeletons. Like, not like they were dropping dead or disappearing or dissolving. It's just photos of like skeletons like lying on the ground in like children clothes. It looks like the Say Cheese and Die Goosebumps book, which is something that is kind of silly. But to put it in the context of this suddenly started happening, it's happening out of control, like it's racing across the city. We don't know what this is. Why are the kids just like suddenly dissolving to being skeletons in clothes? And then the superhero team comes in and they figure out that it was like, it's a virus, but it's a virus that travels through sound. So every, like the mission, patient zero, a kid turns into a skeleton, somebody screams and the virus travels on the scream.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's so outlandish that it can be absolutely terrifying, or like you said, it can be kind of ridiculous and silly. Like, say cheese and die, it's a Goosebumps book, right? And like it's I think this story does a good job of balancing that, because the whole series, or most of it, is just intense the whole way. There is not a spot where you can stop and breathe and just be like, okay, we have some time, let's figure it out. It's like, it's happening now, we need to fix it now. And it's really, really scary. That virus ended up being an alien virus, some kind of alien something. And this is one of the flashbacks that we kind of get to see, that there was this alien invasion that Plutonian helped. I guess their whole like Justice League team. I don't remember if they have a name. Of like, we are.
Oh, they do. Oh, the Paradigm.
The Paradigm. Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you. You guys know me that I'm terrible with names there. So the Paradigm stopped this invasion, but the Plutonian keeps all of the technology that he finds. He's like, we need to hide this. We need to destroy it, or we need to lock it up so no one can touch it. And there is this one scientist who's like, Plutonian, what the fuck, dude? Like, come on, let me see this stuff. And at first he just kind of waves him off, but this guy gets more and more intense and starts bad-mouthing him.
And it's intense for, not just for him personally, like for the sense of discovery. I must know what this alien technology is. It's, we need to assess if this tech...
Yeah, for the good of humanity.
Yeah, like we need to assess if this technology has something that we can build on. Can we make our society better? Can we solve any of our world ills if we crack into this technology from what is clearly a far more advanced race? And Plutonian's like, there's always somebody who says something like this after an alien invasion. He'll shut up eventually. And then it seems like months go by and the guy never does. And Plutonian cracks and he's finally like, fine, here. I barely know what this thing is, but take it. Maybe you can do something with it. Which ends up being his downfall. He didn't assess the thing himself. He was just so furious with this guy, just like impatient, like, stop yelling at me. Here. It's what you wanted.
Yeah. And this virus gets out, and immediately Plutonian recognizes it. And he's just like, oh, fuck. Like, this is not good. I screwed up. And I think ultimately what we learn over time is that it's a mixture, or at least what we know so far in volumes 1 through 4, is that it's all of the flashbacks that we see of him is some kind of mistake or some kind of thing that he can't really control, but it's really irritating. And he doesn't necessarily have the emotional capacity to deal with these things, right? Like, that is one of the things. Like, if you have super hearing and you can hear everyone screaming and stuff and be like, help me, blah, blah, blah. And we get certain panels of that where he is like helping someone, and while he is like trying to help them and have a conversation with them, we get these word balloons that aren't attributed to one person specifically. They're in multiple languages and stuff, but he just hears it's like, help me, or like, get back, you motherfucker, like, blah, blah, blah. And he just hears everything. And that's something you have to deal with, like, as someone who has that power. Like how do you turn that off, right?
Yeah, and
if you help one person, do you lose someone else? Like, that's emotionally taxing.
And that's part of this skeleton virus, is that he had given that scientist, when he gave him this piece of equipment, he also gave him this little like beeper type of thing that's like, if you sense anything off, if anything goes wrong with this piece of technology while you're running tests on it, like, hit this button. It's a sensor that'll go out to me. I'll hear it anywhere. I'll be here in seconds. But when that happens, it is during a time where Plutonian has become so overwhelmed that he flies to the moon. Like, he pulls a Dr. Manhattan and he's just sitting on the moon.
Yeah.
Because that's the only place he can go. He's like, that's how far away he has to get before he can't hear anybody. And he says, I thought I deserved to have 10 minutes of silence for once. And then he starts flying back to Earth after 10 minutes. And the second he's back in earshot, he's like, oh no, that's
I was
the
gone for
alarm.
10 minutes, god damn it.
Right. And like that's I think a real strength of this book is that it does really put Plutonian, he's absolutely painted in a corner, and like you really comprehend what he's going through. Like you can empathize with it to some degree. Like, oh, your life was, it was not your life at all. You were entirely, completely, tirelessly an instrument of the people. You know, for the one time that you're like, I need a break for my own sanity, that brings upon like countless dead, a giant disaster, and then you have it in your head like, that's my fault. I told them I would be there and I wasn't there.
It's also interesting because we know that there are other heroes, but there's not many of them. They are fairly new because I think it's in volume 4 that we then start to get some more stories of other people in the world, or like their origin stories and stuff like that. And we get one guy who ends up being the character that we saw at the start, which is their like Batman Green Hornet style character.
He seems like just kind of a guy who's good with technology and who can fight.
He's a vigilante. But he has this like Batcave style thing. He calls himself the Hornet.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And he just like, he's trying to save people and do his thing, and the Plutonian will show up and swoop in and save the day, but he's kind of this like wrecking ball character compared to the Hornet, which is I think what they say. He's like, I'm a wrecking ball, you're a sniper, like you are precise, right?
Yes.
But it's like we start to see that stuff, and it's just more and more stories of there's not really anyone else. Like if someone needs to all of a sudden fly to the Grand Canyon, who knows if there's heroes around there, right? Like he really has no one else to support him. And just 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just like, shit. Like,
there's a line that he has that really struck me. It is really like this character's whole struggle kind of summed up. I forget who he's talking to, but he says, and he's talking about how, these powers manifested when he was very young. We do find out in a little bit about his history, in that he was in foster care. We don't get as far back to find anything about his biological parentage, but he went through several foster homes, and the people always had like glowing he was a very nice boy. He helped out around the house. We can't keep him though. He went through house after house, and you see that it was his powers that like put such a strain on his family. Like he had, no matter what he did, like he had this one family where it was an abusive dad, and he killed the dad, I think, to like help save the mom. And instead the mom was like slowly driven mad by just the fact that she knew he can hear everything that I am thinking. Yeah. Because she saw like the power that he used to kill the dad. And instead of feeling relieved or feeling free, she's like, oh no, what else is he going to do? He could hurt me. He could hurt anybody. Like that terror that everybody has now after he has snapped is something that people have quietly had in the back of their minds his whole life. And he learned at an early age, like he spotted it, and he never stopped seeing that in everybody. And there's a line where he says, my whole life I've been holding myself as tight as piano wire just so that people would be okay with me being around. Like he knows the weight. He's never gone from this weight of knowing people are terrified of me, and so I have to be as good as I possibly can. I have to be well behaved. I can't step out of line. I have to be helping everybody all of the time, or they're absolutely going to turn on me. They're going to shun me. They're going to send me away, just like when I was a kid. And all of those foster families just pushed me onto another foster family when they got overwhelmed.
Yeah, well, there's the story of that family, which the mom then commits suicide, and he hears the gun cock, but he can't get there fast enough. He's just far enough away that like he just misses it, right? And then we get one that to me, I think is the most nightmarish thing is when we see, I think it was like his second foster family, that he goes with them and they have a new born child, and he wants to hold the baby. And this is when he's super young, and he hasn't really figured out controlling his powers yet. And so they don't really think anything of it, and they let him hold the baby.
Like, he begged and begged and begged and begged, and eventually, like, they already has a sense of it, and then the parents relented, like, okay, you can hold the baby once.
Just be careful, right? And he does, and he doesn't mean to hurt the baby, but he does. And it, like, gives him permanent brain damage just from like touching him.
Like he just holds him too hard.
Yeah, and because of that, the family's horrified, and they don't know what to do, so they just stop talking, and they have literally not spoken since that day. They've not like spoken out verbally to be like, "Hi, Jim. You know, my good old neighbor, how are you? You know, how's, you know?"
And like
they just
you see that
went mute.
Yeah, and it seems like the parents have died at this point, and it's like the two older siblings taking care of the baby of the family now. And like you see them, they've got these like whiteboards around their necks, and you see the sister writes a message to the brother like, "How about we use the good plates for dinner tonight?" So even the most mundane sentiments, they're like, we cannot say this out loud. He can't hear a single thing that we have to say.
Right, yeah, because they're not. It's not just that they're in shock, but they're scared that if they say something, if they express how angry they are or something like that, that he will come after them. And he was well-meaning, but they're still just horrified. And so, yeah, they don't want to speak. Period. And yeah, to me that is like nightmare. It's not this like fantastical thing of like the children are turning to skeletons. Oh no! This is a self-imposed like we just stopped talking.
Yeah,
And that's something that's almost more realistic, right? Of just like I'm just gonna not talk. Period.
Yeah, just to have something that was an accident, like an absolute,
right, yeah.
And like there's, you know, like flying away to the moon was in hindsight an accident, but something like him squeezing the baby too hard is just a shade too close to reality, where it's like, oh, that, you know, we don't have superpowers, that couldn't happen, but it could be like, you know, you could like hand a baby to a little kid and they might accidentally drop the baby, and then that's the whole rest of everybody's life.
Yeah.
Right, which is, it is like really scary, the whole situation. And then he takes Samsara there, you know, when he takes Samsara on his world tour of people he has a grudge against, takes him to the family, and he's talking to the siblings like, after everything else that I tried to do to like set everything right, you know, it's the same family, right, where he's like, I saved you from bullies, you know, I forget what it was, like when you were about to fall out of a tree and I came and I flew up and I caught you. Like he has all these other instances he can name of everything else he did for the family. And he's so angry that they're still scared of him that he pulverizes them. Like he just turns them to dust, and then he flies away. But like the baby of the family is still left alive at this
brain
house
damage,
in the middle of nowhere with nobody around to take care of him. And like, oh, he's going to be dead in a couple days. Like that quiet, more down-to-earth terror. You're right. Like there is the nightmarish, like eeriness of the skeleton virus, but it is stuff like that hits harder because it's like closer to home. It's something you could believe of in our world where there aren't superpowers.
Yeah, exactly. So it's scary indeed.
Mm-hmm.
To move on a little bit though, so I kind of. How do you have thoughts on how this compares to Superman's origin story? Because it is a similar type of thing, but I don't know if you had thoughts on that.
Well, the thing about Superman is that he had the Kents, and the Kents made all the difference to him in his life, that even after their baby started displaying these powers, after he could do things like, and I don't know the order of operations, I've seen Man of Steel a couple times and that's it. Like after he developed super hearing, or he could fly, or he could shoot lasers out of his eyes or whatever, they still never give up on him. Like they're very concerned, but to them it's like, okay, our kid just he's got some real special circumstances and we have to do everything we can to help him adjust to the world. Like we're just make the world a place, get him ready for the world and teach him responsibility and also teach him coping mechanisms. Like there's that scene in Man of Steel where like Clark is freaking out in the janitor's closet because he can't stop hearing everything around him. And then Martha comes to the school and like talks to him through the door and she's like, just make the world a little smaller, Clark. Just zero in till you can hear my voice and nothing else. And then she teaches him a technique that he can use and that he returns to in the future. There's never been anybody like that in the Plutonian's life. There's only been this fear. And this fear creates in him this sense of, I need to be as well behaved as possible. I need to always be looking for ways I can help people. I can't make the world smaller. I shouldn't make the world smaller. I need to be aware of everybody's problems at all times because I can fix them. And if I can, then I have to. Superman, for, as much as we've seen him like, oh, sorry, Lois, sorry I can't finish dinner. I've got to go. Like he still has a semblance of a life. It seems like he does have times where he checks out and he's like, I'm just at work today. Unless there's a fight right outside the window of the Daily Planet or I get a call from Wonder Woman, I'm just at work today. And the Plutonian's never had that. He has always been on the clock since he was like 4 years old.
Yeah, I think with Superman, he obviously has the emotional capacity to take a day off and be okay with that, and know that, hey, I'm at work, or hey, I need to take a dump, right, and go use the bathroom or something, and someone dies, right? But I think Superman also has the support system there, right? You mentioned Pa Kent, but there's superheroes all over the world. He knows that if he doesn't go there, then the Flash will show up, or Batman will show up, or someone or something, right? Whereas the Plutonian doesn't have that. And I don't think it's that the people didn't necessarily try and teach him how to cope, or how to, like, hey, can you like try to control your power? Like, how do we do this? I just think like the Plutonian recognized the fear, and that stuck with him more than learning to control it. And just being like, hey, like I can help a lot of people, but I can't help everyone at the same time. Like he's not come to terms with the fact that if I help one person, I ignore someone else. Yeah. Right. Whereas I think Superman kind of has, in a strange way, or he at least knows it's okay, and like that's just how the world works.
Yeah, Yeah, that's something he has. He has a contentedness with, I did what I can. You did growing up as his farm
You're
boy.
not
It's
going
like,
to
well, you
fix
can't.
everything.
Yeah, like you can't feed the chickens and the cows at the same time. You have to take care
Right.
of one thing at a time and like get to everything in turn. And if you don't, I'm sorry, you don't. And also talking about how Superman knows other people will come help him. That's a narrative. That's a world where there's many very superpowered people. Superman might
Right,
be at
yeah.
the top, but you've got Wonder Woman, who's a
Exactly.
demigod. You've got the Flash, who's incredibly fast. You've got other people that are also pretty high tier. The Plutonian seems like he's leagues above any of his other superhero friends. Like they're all pretty good, but he's like there's nobody close to being at his level of omnipotence.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
omnipotent and they're just pretty potent.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I want to move on, move on to the last thing about the Plutonian that I want to talk about. We do find out he kind of has a weakness.
Yeah.
We're not sure exactly what it is or what substance this thing is, but it's some kind of magical candle. And it is the wax of this candle, and as long as this, I guess, wax is burning, he loses his powers. So that is our first hint at like who he is or what, but it's still like, we don't know anything about
and
this
it's
guy
said
besides
that,
the
like,
fact that he just has this thing.
And like some foe engineered that against him. And I think that's like the one time this foe is mentioned. Like we don't know who they are. It seemed like it was a group of some sort. Like maybe it was like an alien race or I don't know. It's some sort of a group
The
name.
Legion
I forget
of
what it was.
Doom.
Yeah, it could have been like an alien race or like an underground society or a villain, a villain group. We don't know. But yeah, somebody engineered, as long as his candle is burning, you are mortal. And he brought it, like he stole it away from them when he defeated them and he hid it away. And the only time he's brought it out is when he's going to have sex with Betty for the night. He has to burn that so that he just doesn't destroy her.
Yeah.
And it's not until you get that scene that you realize how powerful he is, that he's terrified to touch her. And she says something like, with that candle burning, I could run my fingers through his hair and it wouldn't cut me.
Right.
I'm like, that's something we're dealing with too? You have diamond hair? How dangerous of a creature are you?
Like that, yeah, because like when you get that detailed about like, oh, you can't even touch his hair, like it's almost amazing how much he has like created this like superhero persona when like no one can touch him. Literally, like he flexes, like, boom, and he like breaks
your
someone's
wrist would shoot off.
leg. Yeah. And so it's kind of amazing how much he's actually gotten to save people, like how many people he has saved. But I guess that's something that he can't see. Like, despite all of that, he's still managed to do good stuff.
Well, I think he worries about that because that's what the people are like. Like, he has talked about the sheer magnitude of people who he has saved. The deeds, the lengths he has gone to, the magnificent feats he has done, and also just the constancy of every day I stop like 30 burglars, 30 street muggers. He's always on the clock, and this is part of the irredeemable title concept. Yeah, he's destroyed millions of people, but hasn't he already saved that many or more? And that's something like he's saying to all these people as he's flying around, like, how are you mad at me? I've saved all of your lives before. Yeah, you don't have a building to live in now, but wasn't the life-saving earlier? Didn't that earn me anything? Did it earn me just not being yelled at?
Yeah, he's starting to feel like he's owed something. Just like, I've done so much. Like, can't you guys just appreciate what I've done? And it's not that they don't. but they still just have this like, I really don't want to get on this guy's bad side.
Yeah, and like nobody has taken the load off of him, which is like everybody sees these magnificent feats that he's doing, but then the next day somebody's still yelling Plutonian, come help me. Like that's what gets to him, that he's like, I haven't earned the vacation day yet. You guys still expect me to be there when you need help, even though you know I just saved a bunch of nuns from a burning church yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I've been doing, and you still expect me to keep showing up. That's what breaks him. That like, it seems like nobody believes he should have that 10 minutes alone on the moon.
Yeah. I think that's what makes the whole thing with Betty interesting, is because that is a moment where he lets himself do something that he actually wants to do, right? Like it's not a moment of silence where he goes to the moon, but this is a time where he literally can't help anyone, right? And he's opting for it. So that's kind of why he becomes so obsessed with that. And he now has like a whole room dedicated to her and all of her outfits and stuff like that. Like, like he becomes obsessed because he gets to just stop and be like, I'm actually in a spot where I can't help people, so I don't have to. So I can just stay here, right? Yeah,
there's a moment really early on where he kidnaps this woman who's actually one of their like opposing villains. It's the sorceress named like Inkata or something.
And
he dresses her up. Yeah. He dresses her up like Betty, and then he kidnaps just like some guy who has his same haircut and dresses him up like him and makes the two of them have sex, which is very chilling.
Yeah.
But I'm like, normally if a character was going to do something like that, he'd be like, I'm going to dress the lady up like my past love, and then I'll have sex with her. And like, that's interesting. I mean, it's not good, but it's bad in a different way than I typically would see.
Yeah.
And then later it's like, like he couldn't have. Like, I mean, he could have, but he would have absolutely destroyed the woman. And he wants to not do that. That's why he's like, let me get a stand-in for me, who is a safe person, who won't, destroy you if he touches you too hard. He's like, this is the moment I want to relive, this one night where I was just a man.
Yeah, he has this thing of just like, I want to relive that moment, but I can't.
Yeah.
So can I recreate it somehow and watch it? And even in that moment, like, he's still taking time for himself, but there's no more candle, right? So he just stops, right? But I guess by that time he's not really a good guy anymore. So
I think like. Yeah, there's nobody anywhere who's like, Plutonian, help me, unless there's like a guy who's been shipwrecked on an island and he hasn't heard the news. He's like, I keep yelling. I don't know why he hasn't come for me. I know he can hear me.
Well, he's come for you in a different way. So let's move on to some of the supporting characters.
Yeah.
We started to touch on Betty some. And I think she is one of the like next most important characters, where she kind of fell a little in love with him. She's already married to another one of these superhero characters, but she started to cheat on him with the Plutonian. That's when she found out about this candle. She lied. When they were like, what do we know? Is there any weaknesses? And she was like, I don't know a thing. And so she has a really interesting story arc where she's now feeling guilty. She's not, it's not the Plutonian killed these people. It's I killed these people because I didn't speak up.
Yeah, and it's that, the way they portray it is that like the first day Like the day he snaps. And we don't know what happened on that day. Like what the actual breaking point was. We just know afterwards that this has happened, and we see the paradigm in their superhero fortress, and there's like, oh my god, turn on the news. Like there's footage of Tony destroying Sky City, and everybody's like, okay, this is probably a shapeshifter, mind control, an evil multiverse guy. Yeah. They're like, there's no way this is actually him. But then
where's Dr. Modius?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's Modius.
Number one bad guy.
Yeah. And so Gilgamesh is like, okay, just in case something has happened to him, and still kind of on the pretense of what if it's him and he's being mind controlled. He's like, is there a backup plan? Does anybody know? Like, what can we do to stop him? And he's like, Betty, I know you two were close, and you got the sense that he knew she was cheating on him, but he didn't want to admit
but he didn't know the extent.
Yeah. And he's like, you two were always close. Do you know anything? And in that day, in the first 5 minutes of knowing that he's starting to destroy things, in her mind, she's more worried about, I don't want to admit to my husband that I did this. So she's like, no, I don't know anything. And then as the destruction gets worse, she like can't back out of that initial lie that she told. Like, actually, yeah, I did sleep with the Plutonian once, and in order to do that, he lit this magic candle that makes him mortal.
Which
like she can't stop.
The thing that baffles me about that moment, though, is she didn't need to admit to sleeping with him, though. Like, she could have, I mean, not that I am vouching for her lying, but still, like, she could have been like, yeah, actually, he told me about this magic candle once, like,
or like
years
he
ago.
Showed it to me in his, like, cave of wonders, these are all of my trophies sort of way.
And, I mean, she would have to deal with that, I'm sure, down the road when they we're like, aha, we have this magic candle, and he's just like, you, like, I like, and then he explains the whole thing like that. You only knew about that because we were sleeping together, and they're like, no, he didn't, and right, but yeah, like she could have at least helped her friends in the more short term, while still not, expressing that she was cheating, and that was that was a weird thing for me to look back on and be like, she didn't need to say that right then and there.
Yeah. Well, and I guess you could always just say like, oh, it was in the moment she panicked and she just said
right. Yeah,
no.
Sure.
And like we can think of a plan B in hindsight, and maybe she has too, but she's like, in that moment I panicked and this is what I said, and I don't know how to undo it.
Which, I like, despite me thinking that was a strange thing to do, I think that's also a very realistic thing to do. It's just panic and say no. I just like, no. Right? Like,
I've never met this man before in my life.
Yeah. Who? The Plutonian who? What? He came from Pluto. No, that's a Disney character. Imagine this whole book, but it's Pluto.
Yeah, that's where he's from. This is part of the Kingdom Hearts universe.
Right, yeah. Good stuff. Was there any other characters that you liked or were drawn to their story arc so far?
I liked Cubit. I like that he's just doing so much of this stuff off on his own. Like, it's mentioned that the one foe that the Plutonian ever went up against was this guy named Modius, and we don't have a very
the one foe that could actually challenge him.
Right, yeah. The one foe he ever went up against who he ever felt scared of, that people could tell, oh, this affects him. It's not just like another task, another thing for him to do. Like, it is some sort of an emotional.
He's getting underneath his skin, at least.
Yeah. The only person who's ever done this is Modius. And we don't know exactly what Modius's power set was. I think in the one example we get, he's like shooting a ray at the Plutonian and making him age. So like we don't know if this was like a tech guy. Is it magic? We don't know exactly like what type of
he seems
foe
like
he is.
a Doctor Doom style thing.
Both tech and magic.
Yeah.
Yes. But so Cubit and like Modius has disappeared. Like even before this whole Sky City destruction and, you know, the world is in shambles. That guy just kind of fell off the face of the earth. Like nobody knows what happened to Modius. And so Cubit, knowing that Modius might be the one person that could tell them how they can stop the Plutonian, he's built like all of these Modius robots with a Modius AI in their heads.
Modebots.
And didn't tell it. Yeah, he didn't tell anybody else. So, like, Kaiden, I think, just goes over to, like, Cubit's lab and she's like, why do you have 6 Modiuses walking around? And he's like, oh, yeah, I built those. And I think the robot brains could help us. Like, he's just on his own track. And an interesting angle that he has is that he's got this kind of, no, I can fix it. This, like, savior complex where it's like,
right.
You know, the Plutonian saves people.
He's smart enough to not have to fight him, but to figure out some way, like, we can stop him or we can get to him and talk with him and something, right?
Yeah. Like, everybody else on the team, they're like, we just need to stop this. Like, they all consider the Plutonian a lost cause. He's gone. Like, there's no more Tony anymore. We just have to stop him. And Cubit... it seems like it's because he's got this kind of arrogance to him. Like, no, there's no problem I can't solve.
Right.
He doesn't want to stop the Plutonian. He wants to fix the Plutonian. Like, you know, like he's got it in his head. Like, no, I'm sure there's a way we can get to him. And it seems like it's maybe not from an emotional point. Like, oh, Tony and I were really great friends. I want my friend back. I believe in my friend. It's just
it is for him. It's the ultimate challenge.
Yeah.
How
he's
do
like,
we
I
fix
bet I can
the
do
world's
this.
greatest superhero that is now the world's greatest villain?
He's like, watch me. Like, give me enough
Hold
tests.
my beer.
I can reverse this. Yeah, that's what he's doing. And he's become kind of the leader of this little gang. Like, he's the one, like, really driving everybody. But then whenever anybody kind of asks him these questions, they're like, how much stuff have you been hiding? Like, what else are you doing? Like, he's hiding all this stuff. He's sometimes acting against everybody else's interests. And you can tell that there's, like, going to be, well, there kind of already has been a shift with the Survivor kind of as this new leader of the group.
Yeah, so the Survivor's character, I believe it was him and his twin brother, Scylla and Charybdis were their names. And they shared this, like, cosmic power. And they could, like, shoot beams and fight and make shields and stuff like that. And one of them dies. And they just thought that, you know, without the other one, that they're powerless, because that's what would happen if they were far enough apart. There'd be one of them that couldn't use their powers, and so they just assumed that it worked both ways. That, oh, you know, if that one's gone, then he can't use his powers, and this one can't. But that turns out to not be the case, and they've been lying this whole time, that it's actually only one of them that has this cosmic, like, power, and the other one can siphon it. And it's the one that can siphon it that died, and so now there's just the one left. He is the survivor, and he now has the full power, which he's never used, basically. So he gets in a fight and goes toe to toe with the Plutonian, but he's now, like, starting to get cocky because he did have this fight and be like, guys, I can fight him. Like, we just need to, like, if you can help me fight him, I can beat him right now.
Like I drew blood. Like, I injured him. That's closer than anybody else has ever gotten.
Yeah, indeed. so it's this odd cast of characters that, like, there's one that feels super guilty that she started it all. There's one feels that, like, oh, this is just my next problem to fix. Like, let me prove to everyone that I can fix this. And then there's another one who thinks that they can fix this, but by killing him, just being like, I can beat him. Like, let me just fight him. Let me just punch and then punch him again, right? And we still don't know too much about Gilgamesh. We did get an interesting flashback where I believe he met Alexander the Great. And yeah, he is just this, like, ancient being who's been around on the earth for God knows how long. But man, he's also starting to be a little bit intense and getting to be a little bit unhinged, because we've mentioned he's like this kind of Thor, Hercules type of character, but he has, like, these angel wings. And one of them got torn off by this certain villain that the U.S. military unleashed.
That's one of the best scenes. I'm sorry if I could talk about this for just a minute. Where, like, it's this, military, like a war room, and there's, like, a couple generals around, and, like, they're all older and, like, kind of injured, and you wonder if, like, Plutonian has already killed all of the younger active generals, and this is, like, the couple retired ones who, like, rallied together, like, okay, guys, what can we do? And, like, they're like, okay, we knew this is our last option. We have to do this. And they're not telling you what it is. But, like, one guy hands out, like, 5 envelopes to everybody. And he's like, okay, it's completely randomized. 4 of us, we're not going to get it. But the one who did, I'm sorry, God rest your soul. And, like, one guy, like, opens the envelope and it's this arcane writing.
It's not fair.
Like, no,
it's not
you
fair.
Can't make me do this. And they, like, hold his jaw and they make him, like, say the words written on the paper. And then the next panel is just, like, a fist, like, jammed out of his mouth. And this demon, like, crawls out of his body. He's like, oh, hello, gentlemen. You've decided to call.
Yeah, like, you've summoned me.
I loved that demon.
He's this, like, hunter alien demon like character. He kind of reminds me of Jack Kirby's The Demon, in the sense that he is this demon like character.
He is a demon, yes.
But yeah, like, he's hard to compare to other things. Like, oh, he's like this thing, or oh, he's like that. But yeah, he can teleport and do stuff, or he can teleport between the Earth and his realm. But the only way he can do so is if someone reads these specific words, in which case he teleports, like, inside them and, like, rips out of them. And so they just completely bite the dust. And it's kind of cool that, like, that's what happens. And he teleports the survivor, and he's just like, oh God, like, I just came out of someone, like, like, don't do that again.
He has to pop out of a different guy. You have to take 2 people.
But that character ripped off one of Gilgamesh's wings, and then there's a moment where they all get captured, and Gilgamesh is the one that breaks out, but he's so pissed that he forgets the rest of his team. He's just like, forget you, I'm on a mission to go do something. And to get out, he rips off his one remaining wing and pulls the bones out to pick the lock. And it's just like, oh God,
metal.
This is, it's metal as fuck, but it's horrifying. This whole thing is a nightmare.
It's so wild. Like, and half the characters that we are introduced to die very quickly. Like, we meet these superpowered twins, one of them's dead. Like, there's other members that fill out the superhero team, a bunch of them die. There's a scene where they go to, like, a villain's lair to try and see if, like, okay, you know, he's not Modius, but did this guy ever come up with any sort of plan to defeat the Plutonian? Is there anything we can take from this guy? And I think it's Scylla that's like sneaking in there, and there's all these other villains. Like, there's some other like villain group already hiding out in there. They're trying to do the same thing. Like, how do we stop this guy? How do we survive? And the Plutonian shows up and like kills all of them immediately. So,
we're
like,
the idiots that live here too.
Like, this story is racking up such a high body count. Like, the second you're introduced to somebody, they're gone. Which is, I think, another reason why it chose to go with these very sort of generic superhero types. Like, Incanta isn't really... She's a sort of a vague Scarlet Witch type of lady. And, like, that's all you need out of her. You know, because everybody's just there to serve this premise and fit these archetypes. The whole story is about living up to being an archetype, to being this hero, this protagonist that everybody sees in you, or wants you to be, that you want to be. Because you're like, if I'm not a hero, then everybody's turning on me.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a bit and talk about the artwork. Because I think this fits in with what we were just talking about as well. And I think also kind of contradicts what we were just talking about as well. We have said some nightmarish things happen in this thing, in this book, and it seems like it's more gory than it actually is. Like, it definitely is. It definitely is gory, and there are some horrifying things in here, but the artwork is still that like bright, colorful, like a modern interpretation of like the classic like Greek god-looking superheroes and stuff like that. And so it seems dreamlike in that way too, right? Where it's like, this seems almost happy. And like, very much like, I am the Plutonian, here to save the day, right? But then, the guy rips off his wing and pulls out the bones, and to teleport in, like, you have to like go from out inside someone out, and like, it's this odd mix of like the story and the things that we are talking about don't fit with the artwork, but the artwork complements it in such a way that makes it that much more scary, because it seems like this classic like superhero thing, like, oh, everything is good, like, and the day is saved, right? It's just like, no, things are fucked up.
One thing I thought was interesting about this story was the costume design specifically. Everybody's costumes are very basic. You know, there's not a lot of complex shapes or silhouettes, and very few colors. Like I mentioned, that witch in Canta, her outfit's like all the same shade of navy. Betty Noir is also just like mostly blue and like a couple black accents. Like, the way everybody looks is very, very simplified and kind of elementary. Like, they look like a very cheap action figure, where like they didn't have a lot of money to like mold detail onto the plastic, and they were like, just paint the body one color.
And then the Plutonian, I think, is one of the ones that do have the most detail, and I think the most complex costume, because some of them, like, I'm looking at a page here, I think this is during the scene at the baseball game that Plutonian brings this like giant robot down to, which is a spoof on the Superman thing of bringing the plane down in the baseball game. But there's a panel in which the rest of the paradigms show up, or at least some of them, and you see Volt, who I kind of like Volt. He's really
nice.
funny. He's the like his costume looks like it's like he made it himself, right? Where he got a certain jacket and stitched some things on there, and he has a belt, and yeah, like it doesn't look like spandex, or like, oh, he has some like Kevlar suit thing that you see in all of these like superhero movies and stuff. It just looks like a Carhartt jacket that is purple with like some padding and stuff, and it's just like that's it. But then the Plutonian is one of the only ones. There's a couple more, but he's one of the only ones that has the like full-on spandex with the cape, and it's just like, he stands out. And then he has this like shape on his chest, which it's not, it doesn't mean hope where he's from, right? It's not like, it looks kind of like a P.
No.
Maybe it's a giant penis? I don't know. No, but like it's just this maple leaf looking kind of thing.
Yeah, or like kind of like a flame sort of.
Yeah. Something. It's this abstract shape.
Yeah.
That we don't know what it is.
I also want to mention that this is a story that does not go into any kind of bureaucratics or logistics about superheroes. Like, this isn't an Incredibles world where somebody designs their costumes. Or is it, and it's also not like a Spider-Man world, you know, where like he's trying to, like the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker like makes his own costume. Like,
well, they kind of have that stuff in there, but it's not focused on. I think the only time that we see that is the flashback where we see that the Plutonian has been working. He did actually have a day job at that one TV station.
Yeah.
And that is kind of one of the few and only scenes we get that's like that, where it's like they hold down regular jobs just like us.
Yeah,
you know?
We have no sense of anybody's private lives. But I was going to mention about the costumes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they don't seem to come from anywhere. And like when Charybdis, after his twin has died, and he's like, I'm going to rebrand myself. I'm now the survivor. Next time we see him, he's in a completely different, like, very specific costume. It's got this like military style jacket, but like old military style with this like button placard down the front. And I'm like, where did you get this? Didn't you just announce that like yesterday? Like, I also don't know how time goes in this book.
Yeah.
It feels like everything we've encountered has only taken like 6 days.
Yeah, it seems like that because it's something that they want to deal with as quickly as they can.
Yes,
I think some time has passed, but not much.
No.
Like, I would say at most like a week or two. But that's just my perception of the whole thing. I don't
it's
know
hard
if
to
that's
gauge
actually
because
what's happening.
It's hard to gauge because the story does keep cutting back and like having so many flashbacks from so many different characters all the time.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about? We haven't really talked about Modius all that much.
We haven't talked about Samsara.
Yeah. There's quite a bit. There's a lot in this book. Which is interesting, too, because each volume only has 4 issues in each volume.
They're dense.
About that much. But yeah, they are dense. And they are still pretty quick reads for being as dense as they are.
Yeah, like the story, it's really fast paced, which I think lends to it's done on purpose. Like, it's jarring because it's supposed to be jarring because you are with all of these characters that are running scared from this foe that they have no idea how to take down. They're grasping at straws out there. So the story moves really fast. There isn't, like you mentioned earlier, there's no breathing room. It doesn't stop for any kind of character building moments. Like, it's all like backstory and exposition. There's not a moment of like personality really mixed in there. Like, there's never like, okay, guys, well, let's stop and like, we need to eat. Let's get dinner somewhere. And then they like, commiserate over dinner.
Shawarma?
Like, there's nothing.
Shawarma? Anyone? Yeah?
Yeah, like there's no shawarma scene. There's no, the scene in Age of Ultron after they've taken down all that secret base, and they're like, okay, now it's a cocktail party at Tony's place. Like, there's nothing Tony. They never go to this Tony's place. Yeah, like there's no moments of like little bits of friendship or charm or personality or anything in here.
We get a little bit of it, but it's only like a panel or two or a page at the most, and then it just moves on. So it feels like you don't get like that stuff. It feels like you don't get that stuff at all. And it's something I'm interested in, but at the same time, I feel like the story doesn't necessarily need it. Like, the premise is so strong that I'm fine with them just being like, okay, this is a generic superhero. I kind of know their personality based on, who they are an archetype of, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's it, so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
This is telling such a good, tense drama story. Like, I don't need any levity from it the way I might from another story.
Yeah.
I don't need a break. I'm fascinated at how much you are sustaining all this tension without a break.
Yeah. Indeed. And we have 6 more volumes to go after this. So
10 volumes. Oh, we're breaking up. It's 433, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm pretty much done talking about stuff in volumes 1 through 4.
So.
I know down the road we'll circle back to some of the things that we missed. This one, but yeah, that's the first 4 volumes of Irredeemable. Mark Waid and Peter Krause. So we, on these ones, we like to save recommendations until we complete the thing, or do we do one at the start and then one at the end, right?
That's what we've been doing, yeah.
Okay. Well, Melissa, what would you recommend? Now that you've read the first 4 volumes of this, what does this remind you of? What else would you recommend?
I would recommend something I mentioned earlier, which is a comic we covered earlier this year called Black Hammer. This was written by Jeff Lemire. And we did this. Let me look up like what time of year and what episode number this was.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay.
It was episode 106.
Okay.
Black Hammer volumes 1 and 2 is what we read.
And this is a story kind of like this one in that it is a city full of these more generic superhero type of characters. They all come together in this big battle against like a Galactus type villain. And then as part of this magic battle, they like go through a portal and they wind up in this little farm town in the middle of nowhere where like nobody recognizes them. Nobody's heard of them. It seems like they're in this place like outside of time, and they're in like a real Twilight Zone because they can't leave.
Yeah.
Like they drive to the edge of town and there's like a force field they can't get through. So it's these superheroes that are now trying to live as everyday people. Like, okay, I'm a farmer now and you're my brother and you're my daughter. Like we have to make ourselves into a family unit that can pass in this like American Gothic town.
It's a good
and
book
it's
too.
Just and they've been, when the book starts, they've been there for like 10 years. Like they're all on their last nerve with each other. They're absolutely frayed. And it's about somebody breaks through the barrier and gets to them, and they have to figure out, they still don't know where is this place? How did we get here? Why are we here? Why can't we leave? And is there any hope for us to get out and get back to our old lives?
it has that good central mystery. But then at the same time, it's also the exact opposite, where it's like, if you want the slower moments and the character moments, they are in Black Hammer.
Yeah.
Check that book out. That's a good one to recommend. I would say go read Watchmen.
Yeah.
It's an interesting like alternate superhero take, where a bunch of these characters seem like knockoffs of some of the ones that you know. And you mentioned, or you compared the Plutonian going up to the moon as this Dr. Manhattan moment where he's just like, I can't stand you guys. I'm going to go to Mars. And yeah, I think there's some similarities there. Two other things that I would recommend, ones that I actually haven't read or watched.
Okay.
But it's just like, hey, if you like this type of thing, there was a movie that came out a year or two ago called Brightburn.
Yes.
And it seemed like kind of your knockoff Superman origin story, but it's about this kid who is evil. Like, what if Superman was evil from a kid, like from a super young age, instead of like one day he went bad?
Yeah, it's like your spooky kid horror movie, but the spooky kid is like an 8-year-old Clark Kent, and the movie's from like Martha Kent's point of view, like, oh, is this kid I adopted from a mysterious alien world sent to destroy us? Is he bad?
That'd be an interesting one to check out. And last but not least, Superman Red Sun, I think would be one to check out. That is one that I one day want to cover here on the review show. It is an alternate Superman story where instead of landing in America, what if Superman landed in Soviet Russia? And it's kind of a look at that and what would have happened if he was one of the Soviets. So go check that stuff out. I think that would be worth checking out.
I would also bring up All-Star Superman, just because it has a similar, like, quick, strange, dreamlike pacing to it. It's Grant Morrison, so it's very weird and dreamlike. And it has this same sense of, I'm just mentioning things and not explaining them. Like in this book, they keep mentioning like all these side heroes, all these side villains, all these past events, and they just sort of hand waves them away because it's like, we don't have time to think about that right now. Yeah. And it reminded me of every instance in that book, which is about Superman, I think, like knowing he's about to die, and it's like what he does with his last days, but also like Lex Luthor is getting ready to fight him again, and Lex Luthor gives this long speech to like his niece about this plot that he's doing. Oh, there's a lot of just like, and this one time, this thing happened, anyway, on to business.
Yeah. Good stuff. Cool. I think those are all good recommendations. Melissa, for next month, when we read volumes 5, 6, and 7, we would normally be doing that at the end of the month. Is what we do here at our like special end of the month thing that we do. But in October, we have yet another tradition.
Yeah, in case you guys don't know, the end of October is a pre-existing notable holiday that we would like to celebrate with another type of episode. Like this story, we've talked about it being scary and nightmarish, but this isn't fitting for the Halloween episode.
It's not meant to be a horror book.
Yeah, we're not going to do the middle 3 volumes. Just a chilling, superhero gone wrong horror comic tale.
Yeah. No, so what we do is in the month of October, Melissa and I take turns pitching horror movies or comics or manga or stuff like that. So that's what we're going to be doing the entire month of October. And instead of covering volumes 5 through 7 of Irredeemable at the end of the month, we will cover that the first Sunday of the month in November, which then means November will be like, we'll have the Irredeemable 5 through 7 at the beginning of the month, and then the final 3 volumes at the end of that month there. So be on the lookout for that stuff. But we also already know what our the first thing is that we will cover for our Halloween month. So, Melissa, do you want to let them know what we are going to be covering for next week?
Yeah, we pitched and decided upon this last week. We are going to be talking about season 1 of the TV show Hannibal. This is from, I think, like 2014 or thereabouts. It's from Brian Fuller, who created Pushing Daisies, another show we've covered on the review show before, and American Gods, which we did like way back in our first couple months of the podcast.
That was an early one that we did.
And it's an origin story of Dr. Hannibal Lecter working with FBI Special Agent Will Graham about hunting serial killers. And it's a crime drama. Some cases of the week, but also this overarching serial killer they're tracking.
Origin story for Hannibal Lecter? I thought this was an origin story for the Graham Cracker. Oh, well. You said his name was Graham?
I did, yes.
Dumb joke. You guys hate me. I know.
It's a very pretty show. It's weirdly lush and like it's very stylized and well designed. Like every setting they're in, everybody's costumes, the layout of every scene. Oh, it's like a real visually interesting show. And I'm excited to talk about it.
Good stuff. Yeah, I have not seen that show, so I'm excited to talk about that one. I've heard nothing but good things. I know it stars Mads Mikkelsen, and he is always a delight to watch because he's a good actor. So
yes,
I'm excited. That is what we will be doing for week 1 of our Halloween month. I think that pretty much wraps us up, though. So, Melissa, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT.
And you can find me at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter and Instagram. You guys can stay up to date with our podcasts at the Whatnauts on Twitter. Go like, share, subscribe, tell a foe, tell a friend.
Shout to the sky and a superhero may hear you.
Right, exactly. Just shout it out to the sky. I think we're sitting at 89 subscribers now on YouTube, so we are 11 away. So please help us get to 100 and surpass 100. That would be amazing. I will not stop mentioning this until it happens. So if you guys want to shut me up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until then, I will keep whoring myself out until you subscribe. But yeah, this has been good. This is fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited that we are finally talking
I'm really
this book.
digging this. Like, I love a good superhero pastiche, but I've tended to go for more comedic ones in the past. Like, earlier this year, we talked about The Tick and the Venture Brothers, and this is totally the absolute opposite of those.
Indeed. And it's only going to get more intense. So, good stuff. But yeah, that wraps us up for this week. This has been episode 125 of the Whatnauts Review Show. We will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.